Hey, everybody. Kevin Harned Ryan Hoke here with you. We're glad you settled in on a nice and quiet Thursday evening. Promises to be changing by this time tomorrow, though. So, folks, getting the push alerts. If you're on our news app, you just received that. If you're on our social streams, you've seen that we've gone live. If you're on the Wave Weather app, it's coming. And you can always catch nonstop weather information right here on our apps. Great place to be. It's a good resource, especially when we're in severe weather, when the world's busy, when the power goes out. It doesn't matter. Wave weather now. Say it along with me. Wave weather
now.
There it is.
It's Louisville's only 24/7 weather live stream. And we've had it since June of 2022. And it's getting ready to turn 3 years old, if you can believe that.
It's like a toddler all of a sudden.
I know, right? We've been doing this live streaming thing for a while. And we've seen that folks have attached to us. And we really appreciate your viewership here because, we want to make sure that we're serving everybody on all platforms. It's not just TV anymore.
Well, recorded videos get old pretty quick when we can be live. So it's like, hey, why not just tap into the live part? We're live most of the day anyway, right? I mean, if you tune into Wave, you see that we've got news on. So when there's weather happening, weather's on live, and it should be. So we're there a lot throughout the day. There are more than 18 live weather segments on Wave Weather Now each day. Plus, you throw in Brian's commentary in the morning with the blog. He's on that between usually 9 and 10 in the morning. That usually lasts anywhere from a half an hour to an hour when we have alert days like we're in now and like we have had this year.
Plenty of those.
Nonstop. But we're on always preceding those. And then, of course, anytime we're on with nonstop weather information, it's on there. So welcome in. We want you to sort of get settled in. We're going to spend about the next 45 minutes or so with you talking about tomorrow in particular. We'll address tonight too, but really tomorrow's the day. We do have the alert day in place that will take us through tomorrow.
Yeah, and this alert day, it does cover part of the overnight here just because there's a chance there could be a storm or two that tries to get strong in our area. But again, this is really tomorrow morning and then especially tomorrow evening. One reason why we haven't had widespread storms today is partially because of the SkyTrack camera view. Look at all this cloud cover. Tons of clouds, and of course the capping inversion aloft too, which is basically a warm layer of air a few thousand feet above our heads that keeps thunderstorms from developing vertically. So they all just fade away as they try to develop. We've already seen a few of those sprinkles and showers try to develop today.
Yeah, and they get squashed almost as soon as they try to take off. So we'll talk about capping and what that means, a little more detail, what we expect for tomorrow and why that shouldn't be an issue, especially for the later round of storms tomorrow. So there are a couple of time frames we're going to want you to pay attention to. Your family should be paying attention to. So this is a good time to go ahead and hit share so we don't have to repeat ourselves. What often happens is we go through the course of the 30 to 45 minute live stream here, we'll get comments that are repetitive. And boy, it's tough to go back and say the same thing over and over. So we like to get everybody in all at once. We've got thousands of people watching now on a variety of platforms. So all of us have individual Facebook pages. So we're on the social side. More importantly, most people are viewing us through our news and weather apps. When we send that, as soon as we click that button and you get that alert, that goes to tens of thousands of people. So we really appreciate everybody chiming in and sort of settling in for some weather information that really is going to be important for tomorrow in particular. So that's what we're looking at. Background behind us, because it is now an alert day at the top of the hour at 8 o'clock. Boom. Goes red.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That clip player takes forever sometimes. It'll happen.
It'll happen.
Eventually.
So just another sign that we like to have out there just to say, hey, pay attention. They're calling for an alert day. We called that, 6 days ago?
I think so. Yeah, 7 days ago on our spreadsheet. Hey, look, it's red now.
There it is.
There it goes.
All right, so let's just jump into it. We've got a few things to talk about. We appreciate everybody coming in. We are going to take some of your questions. So here's the way this is going to go. We've got some model data to show you, a proprietary model, by the way. It's the same one we used for Oaks and Derby. Wow. Was that not impressive? It was helpful. It didn't nail it exactly, but it certainly gave us that first glimpse of, Oaks and Derby might not be as nice as it looked 10 days out. By day 7, by day 6, it's like, man, it's not letting go of this rain chance. Maybe we need to pay more attention. And we have a high resolution model developed by a company here in Louisville called Climavision. We're going to show you what that says for tomorrow's storms. So it's a little bit different than what we were looking at for Oaks and Derby, though Oaks wound up having a pretty hefty thunderstorm right before race time.
As predicted, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it sort of nailed actually the general uneasiness or unsettled pattern for Oaks and Derby, and then it actually hit that storm for Oaks Day. So we're going to show you what that says. But up first, let's just walk through a little bit of data. We talked about the alert day being in place. For those of you who are new to WAVE, they're like, what's this alert day stuff they're talking about? Well, you want to explain it?
Yeah. So alert days are a way for us to say, hey, pay attention to a certain day just because there's weather that may impact your safety, your plans, your life in some way. You know, this is a busy world that we live in. We've got phone notifications all over the place. We've got constant text messages. Life is nuts right now. So in order for us to get your attention, because it's harder than ever, you know, not everybody's tuning in at 6 p.m. for the news anymore. We have to say, okay, we've got these alert days. That way we can use that language in these push notifications and these social posts on TV to equally say, hey, pay attention to this time frame here. It's designed to give you clarity in a time when it's hard to get that. So this is not something that we take lightly. We are very good at keeping track of what alert days we've issued, which ones have done well, which have not. We have a very strict set of criteria that we have evolved over the years as viewers' needs have changed and as our needs have changed. So we want to make sure that this is serving you and your family. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't think it was something that was helpful to you.
Yeah, just meant to be like, woohoo, pay attention. So we have 2 time frames to pay attention to. And that's going to first take place early in the morning between 4 and 8 a.m. There's going to be a cluster of storms that move through. Those could contain some hail, not a guarantee, still questionable on that, but we're going to put a 40-60% chance on that for tomorrow morning. And then certainly as we progress through the afternoon and head into the evening hours, we have the real deal that's going to move our way between 4 p.m. and midnight. And that's going to be a couple of rounds of thunderstorms. And some of those could really be severe with 70+ mile per hour winds. Those wind gusts can really cause some problems if they get up to be that high. Large hail, very large hail, larger than baseball size hail in some instances.
And they call that giant hail when it's that big. So that's an attention getter for sure.
The potential for some tornadoes and possibly significant tornadoes. So all of that on the table, nothing a guarantee, but on the table for tomorrow. We warmed up today, still in the 80s. Most places are, at least upper 70s. We hit 86. That time's the warmest we've been so far this year. We've hit it 2 other times.
We have, yeah, here in 2025. And tomorrow we could get even warmer if we recover the atmosphere enough behind the morning round of storms here. So all of this is not only heat energy, but moisture too. Lots of humidity in the air. Look at these dew points right now, upper 60s, lower 70s. Kevin, this is something we'd see in June or July, not necessarily mid-May.
Being fed in from those strong southerly winds. But the reason dew point's important because that's the fuel. You know, when we talk about moisture in the atmosphere, we have latent heat release. We can get into all the science of this, but frankly, most of you just want to know what time, what impacts, and should I be making plans or diverting plans? So we'll just keep it with sort of the general discussion for now, and then we'll dive into some of the model data and maybe sort of geek out for the weather folks. But while we have so many of you in here, knowing that some of you just want to know, let's dive in. So this is the current satellite and radar. Obviously, we've clouded up. That's helping out. Also helping out is that warm layer of air just above the surface. That's the cap. That's the lid. What happens is, just a general explanation, is we take a parcel of air and we want to lift it in the atmosphere. When the air is warm at the surface and it cools with height as we go up, that air is buoyant, meaning that parcel will continue to rise freely. And as that happens, we can sort of see explosive growth. You can even see that with cumulus clouds developing on some days. And you're like, man, that's beautiful. And you sit there and watch it, and those clouds billow up. Well, that's when we reach, an area where there's nothing impeding that vertical motion. And storms, to become strong, have to build vertically. When we have a warm layer, just above the surface in the mid levels of the atmosphere. What happens is the air is warm. It rises because we all know warm air rises. Typically, when it rises, it condenses. We get the clouds. But will we get showers and thunderstorms? Well, again, depends how high it goes. If it runs into a warm layer, it's like, hey, I'm free to rise. I'm going up. Boom. And it hits that warm layer, and it's like, hey, I'm stuck. I can't go any further up. And that's what we call a cap, or the lid on the atmosphere.
Thank you, Professor Harned. Yes, it's really important stuff. And it's the reason why we don't have severe weather right now, but they have it to our north and west. It's literally the cap. It's literally these clouds, kind of a manifestation of the cap, if you will, here. Got a couple of these showers you see moving through. And they are the attempts at the atmosphere trying to make thunderstorms. But of course, those air parcels are hitting what he just talked about, that cap. So that's why we're not seeing anything now, but you kind of see up in the northwestern corner of the screen there, top left, there are some storms, and they are severe up there. And that's where the cap has broken. And that's where all the ingredients are in place, and the storms can capitalize on those.
Let's talk about what can break a cap, because there are a couple of things that can do it. Obviously, to break a cap means we have to erode that warm layer. How do we know there's a warm layer? Well, we don't have weather balloons here in Louisville, but we do have the benefit of having aircraft flying in and out. And that ACARS data really helps out. And that's how we know we're still capped.
Yeah, so the ACARS data, basically these airplanes, UPS, Delta, Southwest, et cetera, they're all part of a program where they have little sensors, little pitot tubes, if you will, on the front of their aircraft that take in humidity, temperature, and pressure data. And because they're rising through the atmosphere, these planes are, and dropping through it on landing, you get these really nice sampled soundings of the atmosphere, how the temperature and the dew point changes with height. That's super important in two situations. One is going to be right now, because we need to know about instability. Number two, ice storms. We had to deal with that back on January 5th, where the ACARS data was important there. Can we see the ACARS data? No, unfortunately, it is locked by the National Weather Service. They won't release that to us, but they do give us, some output of that data from time to time when it's important. So they're sharing it with us when it's important, but it's kind of hard for us to see that data. So we have to get it from them, sort of how the atmosphere is reacting based on the data they have from those aircraft.
And when we talk about breaking the cap, sometimes if we can get a thunderstorm to go, meaning it just finds its way where it can go, it can cool the atmosphere enough that it will continue to erode that warm layer. Obviously, a front can help break the cap. So there are a few things that work against the cap or work to break it down.
Right. So, of course, you have a powerful updraft. If you get a super powerful one that's sturdy enough to withstand that downward motion of the cap, you can get a rogue thunderstorm to burst through the cap. That happens when you have an extreme heating scenario, and you've got, a cap of warm layer, or cap of warm layer aloft there that it's bursting through. A front can do it. A dry line can do it.
Sometimes
out west.
The cooling of just the atmosphere at night can do it.
Nighttime can do it. And you can have mid-level cooling too, by other thunderstorms that have formed where the cap hasn't broken, start to cool the mid-levels and cool that cap down by rain-cooled air spreading through the atmosphere. And that's another way you can break the cap. So there's a lot of ways you can do that. And tonight, we just don't have a lot of those methods nearby to give us that massive cap breakage here.
Yeah, and so we are capped. We're likely going to stay capped for this evening. The best chance to break the cap is going to be to our north this evening, closer to where you see some of those storms developing across Illinois, moving into Indiana. These are current watches and warnings. They stretch all the way, which earlier went all the way through northern parts of Minnesota. Now you see the tornado warning in northern Wisconsin, streaming down into central Illinois with severe thunderstorm warnings. That is where the cold front is. Look at all the reports. We've had a number of reports of funnel clouds and tornadoes and large hail and wind damage.
And your question is probably, is this kind of early in the year for Wisconsin to see severe weather? The answer is yes. Typically, this is a kind of a July thing for them. Again, we were talking about July amounts of moisture over us. This is a July severe weather setup for them. They're under that enhanced risk.
And what good placement that's been for the most part for today. Now, we noted yesterday, wouldn't be surprised to see not only an upgrade in the severe outlook for us, but that's what happened. We went from slight to moderate, or slight to enhanced to moderate now for tomorrow. When we check the radar, again, looking to see if we're actually seeing any storm development, meaning are we noticing anything on radar that's breaking the cap from those storms moving in from the west? The answer is no on this. While we do have some lighter rain reaching the ground, there has been no thunder or lightning with this. To our north, it's a little different story. And that's what we'll have to watch as that moves across parts of central Indiana to see if we could see a few of those stronger storms across northern parts of Indiana in our viewing area. So not only northern Indiana, but the northern part of southern Indiana for us. And you can see the outlined area where they expect the new watch to come out includes Indianapolis and points further to the north.
Yeah, so we'll watch for the very southern tail end, Charlie, of these storms here to see if they try to get close to like the US 50 corridor between Bedford, Seymour, and North Vernon. That would be kind of your highest threat level for the evening is up there if that is to happen. So not a huge deal overnight.
No, at least that's the way it's looking, and that's good news because we still have the chance to see a few of those storms linger into tomorrow morning. We have the slight risk for that time period, right? So this takes us through tonight into early tomorrow, the slight risk. By tomorrow afternoon, we kick that up 2 notches. Past enhanced and into the moderate risk. That's 4 out of 5. Last time we were in a moderate risk, April 2nd, that's where we had the tornadoes that moved across Jefferson County in particular.
You know, we typically don't like to compare severe weather events because they can unfold so differently. But in this case, the threat level is the same as April 2nd. How it will unfold will be different. So just wanted to make that distinction there for folks at home. The tornado potential that's wrapped up in this is a 10% tornado potential. Now, these percentages sound small. Oh, it's a 2, it's a 5, it's a 10. But remember, that's within 25 miles of a point seeing a tornado. What that chance is, that's higher than usual for certain here. And that hatched significant kind of shade on here where you see those different lines, that means there is a pretty decent chance of seeing an EF2 or greater tornado within 25 miles of any point within that hatched lined zone there. So that tells us that the Storm Prediction Center is not only looking for, you know, sort of a moderate risk of tornadoes here, but they're also looking for a chance for strong tornadoes around here. And that's significant. That is something we need to really keep an eye on tomorrow because these storms will have that kind of power.
Especially the ones that occur early in the afternoon. So if we can really develop those individual supercells ahead of a line or something that develops maybe even later into the evening. So that time frame for this part where we would see the worst would be sometime 4 to 8 p.m., let's say. Not only is it a tornado potential, but winds over 58 miles per hour. That bumps into the 60% category. That's also significant. So strong winds through the period of storms, both in the afternoon and the evening, and then hail. That's up there too, 30%, and that's significant. Now that's larger than golf ball size hail with that potential outlook. So we're talking massive wind, very large hail, and the potential for significant tornadoes. We're not here to scare you on these maps. It's just the bottom line on this is the atmosphere is going to be volatile tomorrow. It's why you've seen so many things canceled or delayed. And let's go through the timing of this because a lot of you want to know, well, my goodness, now I'm scared. When is it going to happen? First of all, don't be scared. We're going to be here and we'll be walking you through every step of the way. The important part is having a plan of action. First of all, you're going to have to get the information. We'll be here to give you the information. On the Wave Weather app, the news app, that's the easiest place to find it. Obviously, if we're on the air, you can watch it. But if your power goes out, the cellular device is a very powerful tool to be able to watch and keep up with the current weather information. Our whole team is deployed tomorrow, so we'll be here watching and tracking these storms. Let's go through the timeline. And we first see the morning round. Note this is midnight tonight. We could have a few of those thunderstorms across southern Indiana. That's what we're already seeing on the radar out in Illinois at this point. Some of those could be moving in, but as they do so, they should be weakening. That's the key there.
Yeah, that is the key. So that's that first round tonight. Then we get you into the morning commute time frame tomorrow. And this is primarily between 4 and 8 a.m. Look at these storms. Now, some of these could be strong to severe. I'm concerned about hail in these storms tomorrow morning and wind too. The tornado threat, not so much, but we could have an isolated tornado, especially on the southern edge of those storms, south of our area particularly. So wind and hail, possible tomorrow morning through about 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we get a break.
And that's the key, is how fast these clouds clear out of here. And I think it's going to happen pretty quick. Probably by 10 or 11 o'clock, we're already starting to break that cloud cover up. And as that happens, we sort of re-energize the atmosphere. We build back in a lot of energy that will allow the parcel of air we were talking about to become very buoyant and take off. And there will be no cap, little to no cap tomorrow, at least if there is early in the afternoon. We break that quickly as we bring the front nearby. And you can see that we spend some dry time from the mid to late morning hours tomorrow through about mid-afternoon. So a good 6-hour chunk of nothing happening, where we're destabilizing the atmosphere, especially if we see some sunshine, which is possible. Then the clouds will begin to increase, just like we see with the heating of the surface, rising, condensing air, giving us the cloud cover, and boom, the thunderstorms develop. This is the first cluster. This is where we would have the greatest significant potential for tornadoes and the very large hail with these supercells that could develop by late afternoon into the very early evening hours.
And I'm glad you said that, Kevin. Each of these little purple blobs that you see represents a potential supercell. And they may be clustered together, but they will definitely have the potential to put down that tornado threat. Now, once that initial cluster of supercells that forms kind of a line later on moves by, what we'll see is another line of storms move through. Now, this one may not have the tornado potential that the first round would have had, but it will still carry some sizable hail, the potential for 70+ mile per hour winds, isolated tornadoes, and most importantly with this second round, Kevin, flash flooding. We have had so much rain so far this spring. Soils have been inundated. Our gardens look great. Our yards are 10 feet tall. But when you add all that water all at once to an already pretty saturated soil, you're going to have some problems. I would expect flash flood warnings tomorrow, just before midnight, potentially tomorrow night, as that second round of storms is slowly kind of training its way through the area.
It's always the question, is everybody going to get severe weather? The answer to that is likely no. Will everybody be under a warning at some point? That's possible, because I think that the Weather Service will just sort of broad brush the warnings, obviously paying more attention to individual tornado warnings. But even with that tomorrow, because of the wind energy we're dealing with in the atmosphere, the severe thunderstorm warnings really need to be taken super seriously too. And that means if you're under one of those, just take the time to take shelter and let the storm pass. These are going to be moving through fast. I mean, it's not going to take long. You can see by midnight, and certainly by 2 o'clock, it's already out of the whole viewing area. So that's 2 rounds of storms moving through within that narrow window of time. They're going to be hauling. And once that's passed, we'll be A-OK and settling in for a nice weekend. So we do have the alert day for tomorrow. 2 time frames to watch. The one in the morning, not as serious, but still could produce some hail, 4 to 8 a.m. The second one, that's the more robust. That's the one that you're really going to have to pay attention to. Make sure you have a way to get the warnings. Tune into Wave, 4 p.m. until about midnight, and then we'll get that past us, all right?
So that's how it shakes out right now. There's the moderate risk again. That covers just about all 34 of our counties. You see the severe chance in the morning, 4 to 8 a.m. The severe potential is more likely between 4 p.m. and midnight. And that's when you would see the maximum level of threat for the damaging winds, very large to giant hail. Because of the baseball size hail intensity, we may see here significant tornadoes that I spelled incorrectly. And of course,
I just noticed that. I've been using that all day.
That's been running all day. That's the kind of day that we've had. You know, that the day leading up to a big severe weather day like this is always full of a ton of graphics, lots of preparation, looking at data all over the place. So fat finger there. Forgot the D in tornadoes, but you get the
tornadoes, whatever you want to call it, right?
Tornadoes. That's just what it is.
We mentioned the timeline. We like to give this in a couple of versions so people can understand it. Some people use graphs a little bit easier than just looking at time frames, but this just shows where we could see some rough weather in the morning, followed by that lull where we're sort of hitting the reset button for the atmosphere, and then we come back into the afternoon and evening with more powerful storms that really take us up until about 9 or 10, bringing that chance way back down by midnight. So let's talk about the risk. Here we are for Friday morning. We have 2 of these graphics. Friday morning, I think the biggest threat happens to be the hail threat, followed behind the others, or following behind would be the others, the tornado threat, the wind, and the flooding. That's on the lower end of the scale. So Friday morning doesn't hold the largest potential. It's Friday afternoon and evening where we really max out the wind. And I think we could argue that we even push the tornado threat up into the moderate or middle range, and the hail threat is up there along with the flash flooding threat. So this really is a time that you're going to have a way to get the warnings and information and really make sure you have a plan and pay attention.
And if you have a garage, put your car in there tomorrow. I mean, that's just the best idea. Clean out your garage. If you've got time tomorrow morning after that first round of storms, put it in there. These rotating thunderstorms don't just produce tornadoes, but rotating storms are big hail producers. And so we will likely see some baseball size reports in our area. I know some folks on social media today were like, really? Like, is it going to be that bad? And there's a lot of instability in the atmosphere. The freezing level is pretty low with this too. So there's a lot to argue that this could be a big hail producer here.
Let's talk about ways to get informed. Obviously, we pride ourselves with having the area's #1 weather app, and it's because our team puts a lot of time into the app. We really work hard to keep it updated with manually input information. It can be a little confusing on the app. We use a third party for it. That's why our app looks somewhat similar to other people's apps across the country and even in town. But the bottom line on this is it is very different. It's different in a few ways. First of all, if you go to the daily part at the bottom, and that's where you see that little calendar there. If you tap that and then you tap on tonight or tomorrow or whatever day you want to look at, there's a day part forecast that's typed out. Whether if you start in the morning, it's going to be the morning and afternoon or evening and overnight or whatever. We type all of that information in. So that's not a computer that's generating that. It takes a tremendous amount of time. That really sets it apart along with other things. Obviously, the 24/7 live stream, if you scroll down, you're going to be able to watch now. That'll be real important for tomorrow. The other thing I want to point out is the radar that's on the app can be super helpful, but at times we get a lot of complaints. And the reason is because they may be looking at the future radar. And it's like, well, I didn't know that. How would I have known? And I got to be honest, I think it's terrible the way they have this thing named. We've asked them to change it, even through the corporate ranks at Gray. It's coming eventually, but it's not there yet. So you see where Ryan created the graphic that says, tap this button until it says past for live radar. That's right. Past equals live.
Correct.
Because you can have both past and future or future, and it gets very clunky and confusing. So if you're looking for the live radar, make sure it says past. Now, we've had some people that say, oh, I've tried to tap on that and I can't get it to change.
And we've got one user here, Coffee Pot Mama on YouTube. You're one of the few folks I've answered questions from today. I can't get that button to say past no matter what I do. It's stuck on future. Aha. That's because you see on this graphic here, I'm going to point at it. If you go up into this section up here, you see where that little thermometer is? There is a button about 2 above that. Kevin's going to stop it right there. And see where it has the rain and the snowflake icons there at the very top? Tap that first, and then it will allow you to go down and tap past. Why that happens is because that one that says 24H or 24 hours is sometimes illuminated, and that one will always be a future radar. Why on earth they designed it like this, I will never know. This has been a point of contention for us for a while here. But just make sure that top thing is illuminated with the rain and the snowflake, and then tap past. Most people have been able to tap past okay, but I've had several folks who have needed to tap the rain and snow icon first. I hope that makes sense. This has been kind of a thorn in our side.
Well, we want to make sure you have the use of the app. I mean, it really is a powerful app, to be honest. We put a lot of time into it.
And Coffee Pot Mama says, that worked?
There you go.
All right.
We like it when it works like that.
Woohoo! Glad we're able to help.
Yeah. And let us also mention that we have... You hear that every time you tune in. Wave Weather Now. It's Louisville's only 24/7 weather live stream. It's been going for 3 years. When we're not on, there is weather information that continues to scroll that's important. Radar, temperatures, travel information, changes seasonally during Derby season. We had a ton of stuff for all the events. More importantly, the rain breakdown. There's model data that shows up on there. The bottom line is when there's active severe weather and we're on nonstop, We're on wave weather now, and we're on there now. So like right now, if you were watching wave, you're probably catching, I don't know, what is it, Chicago night? I don't know what night it is. What do we have on our air? Do you
I
know?
wish I knew.
We don't even know. So we're not even paying attention to what's on wave in terms of NBC's coverage because we're focused on the weather. But the fact is, I can tell you that we're not on wave right now. And we are when there's active weather. But sometimes you want it ahead of time. That's when it's helpful, like now. Like in the mornings when Brian's on doing the blog. So you can always find that on Wave Weather Now. All right, I just wanted to mention that as we talk about ways to get information. That's important. We've got to make sure you're able to consume it, or you'll be like, well, they never said that was going to happen. Nah, it's not always true. Maybe you didn't know where to go, right?
Our forecast is only as good as the folks who interpret it or hear it. So we need to make sure everybody's hearing it or seeing it in the best way possible. And that's why we've got the app. That's why we've got Wave Weather Now, to make sure we're super clear on what's going on here.
Perfect. Oh, Law and Order. Thank you.
Thank you,
Laura.
Thank you, Laura.
Laura chiming in with that. Yes, I should have known. Law and Order Thursday. Wednesday night, and there's Kentucky Tina, Tanya, a lot of folks.
Everybody knows it's Law and Order.
They're watching. That's good.
And
all right.
Yeah.
I promised you the model data, right? We're going to take a look. I'm going to take a quick break here, and then we'll come back and take a look. We'll reset the computer where we can show you the model data. This is going to be what we call Horizon AI. This is a local model. We were the first country back in we were the first station in the country to be able to display this, and we used it a lot around Oaks and Derby time. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will go through some model data, again, some timing of what that model and others say, and we'll sort of nerd out on some of the data that we have, knowing that more data is coming in now, and we'll have that before the 11 o'clock show. So let us reset the computers. It takes about a minute for us to do that. Quick break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with you. We've got the model data ready to go. Before we jump into that, I want to talk about the severe weather timeline that we've referenced a couple of times. So we're just going to kind of ease into the modeling. Let's talk about what we've said. And again, I know it's like beating a dead horse here because we've mentioned the times in a number of ways. Between now and about 4 a.m., there are going to be a few scattered showers, maybe a thunderstorm. Best chance of that's going to be off to our north. So that's where we'll watch parts of our northern viewing area in southern Indiana as that tail end of that moves across Illinois. By the time we hit tomorrow morning, that's sort of that hail chance we mentioned between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m.
Yeah, so wind, hail, small chance of an isolated tornado in there. I really think this will be hailers in the morning. And then the main show is 4 p.m. to midnight tomorrow evening. Significant severe storm event. An outbreak is possible to likely in our area, all thanks to the setup where the jet stream is literally overhead. Got a cold front nearby, tons of humidity, tons of moisture. Everything's kind of all maxed out for this, unfortunately. And that's why our threat level is so high here.
And it's really being funneled right in. When you talk about the jet stream across us, the wind field is strong. We look at the different regions of the jet stream, and we're in that favorable region as it moves through to where we will really get enhanced upward motion. Yep. And for that reason, we have that potential for these storms to really increase fast. And not only that, but the more upward motion we have, the faster and stronger the storms can get, the larger the hail can get, the faster the wind will be obviously because of the forward motion of these storms.
Yeah, so this is kind of a spring setup in the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere, more of a summer setup in the lower levels, just because of how much moisture that we have available here.
All right, let's take a look at some of the modeling that we mentioned. And this is what we call the ClimaVision Horizon AI model. You're looking at the timestamp here as we roll through it with you. Again, those storms across Illinois, Indiana, fading as they move into southern Indiana.
This is around midnight here.
This would be, near midnight, and that fades out. And we've got some dry time just after midnight, 2, 3 in the morning.
This is 4 o'clock here.
Notice those storms across far western Kentucky, moving across mainly southern Kentucky. And again, this is one model, and we'll compare this.
This is 8 a.m., by the way.
And you can see those showers and thunderstorms quickly in and quickly out. They are in a weakening phase by then, but initially they were somewhat strong. So they're out of here. This is our reset time, mid-morning.
And then once we get into about, this is 6 p.m. right here, there are those initial supercells, and they are ugly on this AI model right here. They stay somewhat individualized, especially that southern one there. The rest of them are clustered to the north. These would be the big time tornado makers.
Big time hail makers too.
This model and this particular model run was part of the reason why, and you saw this on our Facebook page earlier today, that I circled areas along and south of the Western Kentucky and Bluegrass Parkways to be in that more significant tornado zone than anybody else in our region here. This matches up with what we saw on the HRRR model earlier today.
So this is, again, a little later than some of the modeling had, where it was looking at maybe 3 or 4. These models that use convective parameters to try to nail the forecast days in advance sometimes struggle with both intensity and timing because they have a tough time understanding a capped atmosphere, for one.
Yeah.
And so the question is, what time is reasonable? And that's why we've put a time frame between 4 p.m. and to midnight on the severe chance tomorrow, because it could go a little earlier than what this model says. It's saying closer to 6. What's an hour or 2? Really not that big of a deal. But if you're making plans or there's an outdoor graduation or something like that, then all of a sudden it becomes a much bigger deal, right? It's like, wait a minute, you were 2 hours off. Well, just understand, sometime between that 4 p.m. and midnight timeframe across our counties, we're not forecasting for just one point either. It's 34 counties. So that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, so that's that initial cluster of supercells around 6 p.m. This is 8 p.m. here. You see those are departing. We get a slight break. Again, this is just one model here. And then by 10 p.m., the second line of storms moves in. Now, this has been well advertised on
big wind, big
every
rain
piece of data here. And this would, as Kevin said, be big wind, big rain. Not as much of a tornado threat. However,
still a threat.
There could be some tornadoes in this.
And we often see that here. That's what we've seen a number of times this year, where you get the squiggles, wiggles, whatever you want to call them, along that initial line. And you can see it's not a smooth line. Anytime there's a wrinkle in it, so to speak, it could spin. And we're certainly in the environment tomorrow. All the photographs show the curvature, show the fact that we have the potential for rotating storms, even along the Boeing and linear segments that we have.
Yeah, this is 11 p.m. tomorrow night on the model, by the way. So that means by midnight, most of this is pressing out of here. So this lines up well with the exit timing of all the other models, which is good.
And think of what moves through in that amount of time.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking a round of supercells. So this model had 6 o'clock. So between that 6-hour span, we're moving through supercells with possible tornadoes and large hail. We're bringing in a corridor of rain that's very heavy with flash flooding potential, especially areas that get repetitive downpours, and the additional threat for hail and wind. And then it's all out of here, 6 hours. I mean, these storms will be booking it. You're not going to have a lot of time tomorrow. Wasn't too long ago, those storms moving at like 20 miles an hour. And it's like, all right, you've got time. You need to get to your safe place, yada, yada, yada. No, tomorrow, have it. When you hear the warning, go. Little time to react.
These will move at interstate speeds because that jet stream is right over us. That jet streak really is over us here. And that's going to be steering these things 50, 60, maybe even 70 miles per hour of just the speed, not to mention the wind speeds coming out of these could be 70, 80, maybe 85 miles per hour at times. So severe thunderstorm warnings will need to be respected tomorrow. It's not just a severe thunderstorm warning, because they could have big hail and big time damaging winds.
All right, we have the option to also make this view a little tighter to the Louisville area if we want to do that. So we can make this like our viewing area, if you will. And that just shows, tough to sort of pick out exactly where you are. So maybe that's not the best view.
You can see the river.
But you can see the river.
One helpful point.
And
Louisville's in the dead center, by the way.
Yes. And so that, the strongest part for Louisville, we get clipped by that afternoon round. Again, some models bring it further to the north. So being off 50 to 100 miles this far in advance is certainly still possible in terms of the strongest storm. In addition to the reflectivity that we can show you, we can show a number of other variables. And I don't know, back to the regional view will be maybe helpful, and then you can choose.
Yeah, let's get that going here. And what I can do is share with you the
SIGTOR, maybe a good one.
SIGTOR is fine. Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll do draft helicity tracks here. And if we're speaking Spanish to you, if you don't know,
we said we were going to geek out.
Yeah, we're getting geeky here. So essentially, this is SIGTOR is significant tornado parameter for those who need the translation. And essentially, what's going on here is the model is taking all the ingredients and putting them together into one parameter, saying, okay, this is where most significant tornadoes are going to be. Notice early tomorrow morning, values aren't very high, but look what happens after we get through tomorrow in the afternoon here. Boom. See some of those higher values to our south there. What's going on is there's a hole. What is this hole here? Those are the storms themselves taking up all the ingredients. So it's kind of hard on this model view here to see what the actual ingredients are, because the storms kind of overtake the atmosphere so quickly, and then they shunt all of those ingredients to the south and east. So that may not be the most helpful thing, but what we can share with you is where this model thinks rotating thunderstorms will be going through. And this is what's called the updraft helicity swath. So I'm going to start right now. This is basically right now, if you will, and start stepping forward in time. This is midnight. Notice none of these streaks through here yet. That's good news. This is tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Notice these storms in southern Kentucky starting to put down some potential rotation. Again, this does not mean that there will be tornadoes out of these storms. It means there will be rotating storms with the potential for some hail, maybe an isolated tornado in the morning.
And that's the thing. To have a tornado, you have to have a rotating thunderstorm. So a rotating thunderstorm doesn't equal tornado, but a tornado has to have a rotating thunderstorm. So if there was going to be a chance tomorrow morning, it's across southern Kentucky down into northern Tennessee. Now that changes as we go into the afternoon.
Yeah, and that's based on this model data.
Scrub through this and you can see not only does it change in proximity and location, but in intensity.
It gets real purple there, which is a real high value. I'm going to back that up so you can see how it changes. These long streaks, these long dark purple streaks of updraft helicity. That's a problem. And that's, again, in our southern Kentucky counties where it's most prevalent during that time frame between about 6 p.m. and about, say, 11 p.m. So that's
timing is good.
Partially why I, of course, put that big old circle. You'll see it on our Facebook page over southern Kentucky for the biggest tornado problems tomorrow as it stands now.
We have new data coming in. So you're looking at the 18Z run. So that's going to be the afternoon run. The 0Z run, I don't think is in yet, but within the next hour, it will be in. So we'll have new data to make a forecast off of for the 11 o'clock show. We can also show you the HER model, and we can point that out. Just use one of the web browsers. And we'll just show that. I could pop it up in the graphics too, if that's easier.
Here it comes, because we'll have more parameters.
So let's
show if we do this, and this should be pretty big too.
Let's just use the college to page here.
F11 this thing. There we go. Should be able to see this a little better, and I should be able to control plus this a little more. This is looking good. Okay, so this is College of DuPage website here. This is the HER model. The 0Z run is 8% in. Okay, so we don't have new data yet.
Not enough.
But we do have data that goes out to 18 hours, which is somewhat helpful here. And this is only an hour old. This data is right here. And you'll see by 4 o'clock in the morning, some storms try to move through. And as we head toward, say, about 8 a.m., some strong storms in southern Kentucky. Very similar.
Again, I was getting ready to say.
Very similar.
What we're looking for in the model data, as we look at both high-resolution models that we have, the Horizon AI and the HER, we're looking for model consistency. we need to know if the models are in agreement. That helps build confidence in a forecast. So as Ryan pointed out, we're looking at two things. We're looking at the timing, and we're looking at the intensity of what it's saying and its placement. All right. So both of these show that early morning run moving in through. I'm looking at
and this is 12Z, so 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
Notice it gets it kind of out of here, but it tries to have some tail end Charlie storms that go all the way to 15Z, 14Z, which is about 10 o'clock in the morning. So that may try to extend out how long it takes to get that morning round out of here.
And that's important, because if it takes a lot longer to get the morning round out, and we've not been able to recover the atmosphere back to not only warmth, but also some sun that would add the instability, then that would maybe curtail in timing and intensity the second round of storms. So that's what we're looking at with this. Comparing model run to model run, we'd have to go back to the 18Z model run of the HRRR. And again, let's see what it looked like. This is the, let's go back.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sorry about
so this is the overnight, early morning, push it through. There it is. And that pushes
Similar
in.
timing.
Very similar to what we saw.
Yep.
And then that clears us out. Very similar to what we saw on the horizon. So what this tells us is the later runs of the HRRR that take us closer to the 0Z runs coming in now, that it tries to linger that moisture a little longer in the morning. So instead of it sweeping it out of here by 8 a.m., maybe it will linger through 9 or 10 in the morning before it's completely out of here. And then we're into the afternoon. We're destabilizing. The storms move in. That's the problem right there.
This
we have
right here.
individual supercells,
That's a problem.
which is also similar. Is it similar in time? I can't see it.
Yeah, so 22Z, 6 p.m. So very
same
similar time, similar location. That's why our confidence in the overall storm setup for tomorrow is a little bit higher than usual. The morning round is still kind of a wild card, if you will, but the evening round, depending on what the morning round does, at least on two key critical pieces of data, looks pretty similar.
Yeah. And we can't see this time frame in the latest run of the HRRR. So
correct.
That's the
this is the
we'll have to compare the 0Z runs.
We compared both 18Z runs, which is good. So we showed you kind of apples to apples, which is critical in this kind of situation.
And then this is the more linear system with the hail and the high wind that moves through with the heavy rain. And then that's out of here again by midnight.
And then the helicity swaths are as follows. There's the morning round. Notice mostly Southern Kentucky. Same story, same song and dance. Here comes the evening round.
Same
kaboom,
thing. Straight across Southern
Kentucky.
Missouri, Western Kentucky, and then boom, right into Central Kentucky.
Yeah, so where you see those redder values, that's your greater tornado zone there.
So, if we were looking at the data and you're in Southern Indiana, you might be saying, do we have anything to worry about? And you have less to worry about. Tomorrow. That's probably for certain. Mm-hmm. All of the high-res model data shows the greatest problems just south of Louisville. And does that mean you can let your guard down? I wouldn't do it just yet, because wavering, 25 to 50 miles is still possible, even up to the day of the event, right? This isn't gospel right here. This is just numeric data that is being crunched into maps that we're making a guess on, right? And we take as much data as we can, compare it, look at it, understand the model bias, and try to create a forecast that is somewhat reliable and realistic. And this is back to, I guess, the SIG-TOR param.
Yeah, we're going to compare the SIG-TOR while we're at it, apples to apples. And notice it's got those higher values across Southern Kentucky again as the evening round moves in and then flushes all of it out of here with the cold front. So, yeah, gosh, it's almost like looking at the same thing twice.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, that builds confidence. And we'll see how the 0Z data comes in. They're both coming in now, and we'll have that by 11 o'clock. So that's where we are in the model data, guys. And if you have questions, we'll take a few minutes. We've gone a little past the time I was targeting, but we'll spend a little bit of time and answer some of your questions.
Yeah, so this is kind of a standout event, so that's why we wanted to take a little bit more time to go through the data here with you this evening. But we've got so many folks asking about, their plans tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is a big time of year for graduations.
Well, and then don't look too far down the road, but we've got another alert day there on Tuesday for another few storms moving
We're
in.
so over that.
This would make 35 alert days so far
and I
this
think the stat
season.
you gave me earlier this week was almost a quarter of all days in 2025 have been alert days, and we don't wear that with a badge of pride. That's just how it's been. We haven't really changed anything. We're not trying to manipulate this to make it more.
Right. Every one of them have verified in some way. We have strict criteria for these things. So it's, we don't take it lightly when we have to put that badge on a day to say, oh, it's an alert day, and we're jumping up and down. Frankly, this year we moan a bit when we have to put it on there. It's like, oh my God, another alert day. But all of them, with the exception of 2, have had advisories, watches, or warnings. The other 2 were impact-based, the balloon glow, and then there was something else. And obviously the balloon glow, they weren't able to put the canopies up, so we consider that a win as well. And anyway, we'll see how this one works out for tomorrow.
All right.
I'm not worried about it.
No.
In terms of it failing.
I was going to say, that's the problem. So we've got 2 questions about types of alerts and things like that. So we've had this question today. Brian Durr has the similar question. Any chance of a high risk upgrade at this juncture? I don't think so. Our last one was November 2013. That was a bust, by the way. The last one that did anything was March 2nd, 2012. That's the level of event you have to have for high risk. It's a little tougher in this part of the country, especially, to see that. So
I suspect it depends what happens tomorrow morning.
Yes.
If we escape tomorrow morning and the skies for some reason stay clear or clear out very early, it's not out of the question. But I don't think any of the data points to that. So that makes it less likely. But is it possible? Is there a chance? I'd say there is a chance, but it's a very low chance at this point. Obviously, we get past tomorrow morning because it builds on that. We'll see how it looks. Certainly, we have the ingredients needed for robust, severe weather. Now, the timing of that and how that plays out is somewhat dependent, not fully dependent, but somewhat dependent on what happens early in the day tomorrow.
Cameron asking the other sort of elephant in the room question, could we have PDS watches and warnings possible? PDS standing for particularly dangerous situation. That's when the Storm Prediction Center attaches that wording to an even more intense type of tornado watch or severe thunderstorm watch. The answer is that is possible.
Yeah, you don't see the National Weather Service say significant tornadoes or see a hatched area on the outlook without assuming that a PDS is possible.
If the supercells tomorrow look as bad as some of the model data tonight, that is pretty possible in my opinion. So we'll see what goes on with that. Andre, buddy of mine from high school, says, just got a notification that Oldham County will release early tomorrow. What's up with JCPS? We're not in the school cancellation or release business, so we're not quite sure what's going on with that. Have the Wave News app for any updates on that.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. I don't know about releasing early. I think most of this is out of here. I understand there are a lot of graduations. We've been on the phone for the last 3-4 days with folks that have outdoor events. There's weddings, there's graduations, and all of that stuff is a tough call days in advance. But now that we're getting close and severe weather looks very likely, especially after that 4 o'clock time frame, we always build in a little bit of a buffer in case it changes. So, our thinking was like, okay, 5 to 6, we could have some strong storms. We just showed you the model data. It's both high-res models are saying 6, but it could be in our western part of our viewing area by 5, I suppose, or maybe 5:30.
Yeah, it's possible.
But we like to build in a little time so we're not constantly just trying to play whack-a-mole with the time. So we said 4. And that's where we'll keep for tonight, unless the data just really goes awry. Somebody has to be the bear. Yeah, right. I know. I do a lot of charitable events and auctioneering and raising money for groups that are just near and dear to my heart. And a lot of these I've done for years. Creasy Mahan out in Oldham County is one of those. They had their butterfly ball scheduled for tomorrow. And earlier in the week, they're like, man, it's under a tent. It's on the beautiful nature preserve out there. And I was like, yeah, you probably need to cancel the tent for sure because you're just in a lightning rod. And so they did that, had a backup plan. But as Wednesday rolled around, Thursday, here we are. And it's like, no, just cancel it. So, and that is in that time frame of that 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. time of when it would have been happening. And
That's rough.
It doesn't look good.
Yeah, that's a good call there. Anita says power outages are likely. Yes. If we do see 70, 80 plus mile per hour winds, and if that happens to move through a very populated area like the metro, you could have a fairly widespread power outage situation, like a top 20 power outage for our area.
Well, we've heard the term duratio being thrown
Lord.
around a lot.
Yes.
And while it may not fit that exact definition, the fact is it's a wall of wind, and that's still possible to move in. I see Ashley saying, I just want to sleep, y'all. Well, get on the bus. We do too. Let me know when. It is, what a year this has been. We've said it a number of times, but holy mommy, look at the bags under my eyes. Not only have I lost sleep, I've lost hair, lost skin tone, falling apart over here.
The good news, if there's to be a silver lining here,
No,
is that,
there's not.
If there is, it would be that these storms are out of here by midnight tomorrow
Okay.
night. So, we won't be doing this all night long. Remember the tornado that struck J-Town happened at 12:30 something in the morning.
I was here.
We won't have that tomorrow. That would be earlier in the evening if that were to happen, by the way.
Just to give you an indication, Ryan is off next week. Brian scheduled off tomorrow. I was scheduled off tomorrow. Are we off anymore? No. So we'll be here tomorrow because of the weather. When the weather calls,
We're here.
we answer the phone.
Right. Cameron's asking another good question. So what would change in the next 12 hours that would create the greatest significant tornado chance to move a bit tad north of where we had it in southern Kentucky? In that circle that I put on Facebook, you'll see it.
Yeah, and what would change would be tomorrow morning's cloud cover, the development of what happens early in the morning, what happens, through that time, allowing that moisture to come up. What happens in terms of keeping some of the moisture further south? I don't think we have a whole lot to worry about because it's already in the 70s in terms of dew point, but the storms can rob energy to the south. So we'll just have to see how the morning plays out. It all is a domino effect and plays off of each sequential round of storms. So really what would change that is what happens tomorrow morning as opposed to what happens in the next 5 to 6 hours.
Yeah, Ashley was kind of asking for some clarification too. She says, so I was watching on TV. Were you saying E-Town and Point South have the best chance? And I'm assuming you're talking about tornado-wise. Yes, at this point. Again, make sure you're staying up with our updates because things can change overnight tonight.
And I wouldn't get focused in on just the highest tornado chance because the wind field is what's most
huge.
Impressive about this, and the large hail. They go hand in hand. So this is a all modes significant event. I think we're going to see large hail in places, not everywhere. I think we're going to see damaging winds, if not destructive winds. That's a definition of over 80 mile per hour winds in places, not everywhere. And I think we'll probably see a few tornadoes tomorrow. I just think that we're in the position of the jet stream. The ingredients are there. Again, does it hinge on tomorrow morning? A little bit, yeah. So we will have to see how that goes. But if we can get past that and it goes the way we think it's going to go, I still think we have the potential. And frankly, if nothing happens tomorrow morning, it may be even worse than what we're thinking now.
Great. Yeah, we don't want that to happen. We actually do want storms in the morning to hopefully limit some things. The last part of what Brandon said is super important. I know a tornado is still a tornado. Yeah, so like any tornado is a problem, whether it's EF0 or EF5, right?
Especially if it's hitting your house.
Exactly.
Right? Not your house, but
someone's
meaning
house,
your house,
your collectively house. Do you all see us having some large Great Plains types of tornadoes or just EF2 at most? I got to say, there is potential for greater than EF2 tomorrow with the ingredients we have in place. And they could be plain style tornadoes just because those come from supercells, right? Typically our tornadoes are in these QLCS lines of storms that move through in the little wiggles. But if we've got supercells in the forecast tomorrow, then we could have plains type tornadoes that accompany those supercells.
Well, you saw the models sort of pointing to that with those helicity swaths.
Mm-hmm.
When you get those longer tracks of the swaths, again, doesn't necessarily mean it's a tornado that's on the ground, but it is a rotating thunderstorm that's traveling that distance. And should it put a tornado down, that's an indicator that it could last the length of what those swaths are on the map. So even the modeling is picking out longer tracked rotating storms, not necessarily long track tornadoes,
Correct.
but longer track rotating storms.
So Todd brings up a good point, Todd Wells here. Derechos are typically not forecasted. Yes. So you're going to see a lot of TikTok. You're going to see a lot of YouTubers. You're going to see a lot of Twitch streamers that are all going to say, here comes the derecho of 2025. They can't say that. The reason is because a derecho is only declared after it has happened. The National Weather Service has a very strict definition of a certain amount of damage points over a certain amount of time, over a certain amount of miles. And they have to go through and see if this meets criteria days after the fact, and then they will say, hey, guess what? A derecho happened. So we can say that, hey, a possible derecho setup is possibly in the cards, but for anyone to say there's a derecho in the forecast is full of baloney. Let's see what else.
Semantics.
Yeah. Tina says cold compresses help with your eye bags, Kevin.
Yeah, I might need more than that. A little cucumber, a little ice. Whatever.
Dell here on YouTube says, what about the summer? Any major severe weather events? We haven't looked that far into
The way the year is going, probably.
Earthquakes,
the cicadas are, if they don't take over, maybe we'll get a break.
I had to watch my step this morning. Those cicadas are all over
were they
my
in your
neighborhood.
yard?
Yeah,
Really?
they're all over my
I
neighborhood.
haven't seen them at the house yet.
They make a nice, unfortunate spot
Crunch.
on the ground when their stuff is everywhere after all the cars
It is,
run over
it's
them.
crunchy.
It's
to
yeah.
walk.
Especially when they've like molted and they've got their shells everywhere too.
Right.
Let's see. Oh, Chris is asking about storm helicity, storm relative helicity. What are the floor and ceilings of those? Today I saw between about 150 and about 350 0 to 3 kilometer SRH, which is a lot. Anything above 150 is like, woo. And anything above 200 is like, oh my. So we've got enough. We don't have to start dissecting number by number on that because it's enough.
Well, and in fact, do you still have the College of Facebook?
I can get it up.
Show the.
Yep.
I'll pop this up here.
Hold on. Pardon.
So
there we go. We're good.
We're going to put the sounding up.
I have to do that from the NAM.
Yeah.
Because there we go. Now I can get to it.
So we'll go to we don't have the 0Z run of this end, so it'll be the 18Z.
Take kind of the maximum point here. This is about 6 p.m. I'll take a point sounding somewhere close to E-Town here. And boom, you'll see it white for just a second, but then magically an atmospheric sounding will appear.
And
like that. Like that.
And
Oh, are we going to make me a liar to open in a new tab? Oh, it's still loading. It's spinning.
It's that
there it goes.
It's that dial-up service we have.
Okay, so this is the sounding, and it's really hard to see for you guys. But what it shows is exactly what I talked about. Surface to 3 kilometer, SRH 229. That's a lot. Again, anything above 150 gets our attention. Anything above 200 is a problem.
See the potential hazard type, PDS tornado. So
shout out to Cameron talking about PDS earlier.
Yeah, and you can see the photograph. You can see how it's severe hail and supercell. So all of what we've been talking about shows up in the sound.
And the cap has just broken too, because you can see that warm layer of air and the surface parcel meeting up right there with a sin of -2. So the cap literally
just equilibrium.
Breaking. Yeah.
Or just
it just broke in this sounding here. So it's a powder keg type of sounding with 4 D800 surface-based cape. That's literally like dynamite. That's a whole lot of upward momentum. That's
the energy we talk about that we have to build. It has to build or it just sort of slowly escapes. So as it builds, that's sort of what's just waiting to explode. And obviously with the front moving in, with other thunderstorms coming in, we will erode that. And the timing of that.
This is 22Z, so 6 p.m.
We're looking at 6 p.m.
So one thing I do want to discuss, because everybody's like, hey, what about a high risk? What about a high risk? One thing, if I were the forecaster in Norman, Oklahoma, determining whether or not to get a high risk, one thing I see in this sounding that would dissuade me from doing so is the surface wind is kind of south-southwest. That lessens the amount of directional shear in this particular setup. That's why these supercells don't stay individualized like the Great Plains. They cluster together because you don't have as much shear to keep everything kind of separate
discrete.
Discrete discrete, discrete.
Yes, ding ding.
There's a couple of different discrete definitions. This is a slightly different one than you might be used to here. But
yeah, if that surface wind were really from the south,
that would be a bigger problem.
We would have
that would be, in my mind, more of a high risk scenario. And because of that, your bulk shear is only between 29 and 30 in the upper levels of the atmosphere, or excuse me, the lower levels of the atmosphere, pardon me here. But your surface to 6 kilometer, when you start comparing it to the upper levels, up to 60 knots, that's a ton. So plenty of wind energy for severe weather. It's just major, big time tornado outbreak, rock'em sock'em robots, tornadoes. I just don't see it as much in this sounding as you should if you're wanting to look for a high risk scenario.
But I think it's important also to note that high risk does not just mean the most massive tornado.
Correct.
You know, when we're dealing with softball size hail,
it's a big problem.
80-mile-an-hour winds, and EF2 plus or EF3 tornadoes, you can still get in a high risk.
Yes,
so
it's possible.
Can't rule it out.
We'll see what happens. Usually the historic high risks that we've seen in our area have been for tornadoes. 2012 rings a bell. 2013 was supposed to be, an issue for tornadoes, but I'll be curious to see what they do. There's a lot of psychology that goes into that stuff that sometimes is beyond the scope of our discussions.
All right, we're at 20 after. We went about 20 minutes longer than I'd hoped. We are going to jump off here so we can look at least what data has come in. We'll be here tomorrow. I have a feeling we're going to be on the air before we're able to jump on. Brian will be, no, Brian's off tomorrow.
He's off.
So,
but he may come in if things are rough.
Well, he'll be, he's coming in the afternoon for sure, but I was thinking for the blog in the morning.
Oh, in the morning.
But Carson will be here.
Oh, yeah.
So Carson will do an update in the morning, and then you'll probably see the rest of us on the air later in the afternoon. I have a feeling by the time our normal 8:15 time frame comes around, we're going to be in the middle of it. So we'll likely be on the air. If we're not on the air for some reason, meaning there's no tornado warnings or massive damage, then we will be on from in here, walking you through it. So we've gone through everything. I want to say thanks for watching.
Yes.
We'll be here tomorrow, and we'll get us all through what to expect for this latest round of severe weather on the year that just will not stop.
Have you had enough?
If had enough. You're on vacation next week. I'm on vacation the week after. So I'm like,
but we're all paying our dues this week,
my
obviously.
Goodness. Yeah. And still showing little signs of easing up. It just makes it even harder when somebody's off, because it's like, oh, now we're focused on more alert days. Anyway,
just what we want.
We'll get
more
through it.
Days.
Everybody has to have a little time of peace. So we're going to go bananas.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you guys tomorrow. See you here. Appreciate everybody chiming in. Have a good night.
We'll see y'all later. Goodbye.